show, take a second to leave your thoughts and rate it.
This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and Upsnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio. Welcome to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. Enjoy a survey of inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. It's all right here. Leading authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs with stories and messages to support your well-being, let alone your most evocative dreams.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you know, but I'll tell you anyway, that's because I make it that way. When I wake up in the morning, before my feet hit the ground, I decide it's going to be a groovy day, and the whole day, something else might happen, something might come along, but I always think back, I started out groovy, I can turn this around and have a groovy day, and that's usually how it ends up. That's what I do. Welcome to Life Master Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. And we have a really cool guest today. I also have a really cool co-host. Jackie's on vacation. She's in the sun in the Caribbean, if you can imagine that. And here I am in Seattle, dark, hazy skies. Oh boy, do I wish I was where she was. But I'm here on Life Master Radio with some really cool people. So I invited Sherry Fernandez. You might remember, I think she was on the show back in October or November, and she wrote a really, really cool book. And guess what it's called? Life Mastery. Cue for Sherry to hold up her book. Oh, there she is. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It was an interesting conversation. And so I invited her back to be co-host today and ride shotgun with our guest. How are you doing, Sherry?
I'm doing great. I'm so pleased you would think of me and have me be a co-host. It's really fun. I
always like to mix it up. It makes for interesting conversation. You have different background than I have, and when we interview a guest, we get different perspectives, and it makes for great radio. I think I just want to remind our listeners, there is no script. This is an open conversation, like a fireside chat. And that's the way it works. And it makes for some great content, and everybody just has a blast. I'm going to guarantee both of you that you're going to have a blast today. And Sherry is a world-renowned traveler. She's hard to pin down sometimes, but I did get her today. So Sherry, I'm grateful that you're here. And like I said, you're going to have a blast today.
was happy I could do it.
I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com. We have a link already up there to our guest's website, so you don't have to worry about writing anything down, and anything else that we talk about, we'll make sure it gets put there. And later on in the week, or next week, I think, since Jackie's on vacation, we'll get a blog post up about this show. While you're there, sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter goes out once a week. Jackie edits it and highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and of course, the blog post about the most recent show. It's really cool. That's all we use that email address for. So sign up for it. While you're there, cue for me to hold up my book. There's my book, 6 Keys to Life Mastery, which Sherry and I share some of the same title, but it's just some things that made a huge difference in my life in my mid-40s. And I thought, if I would have understood these concepts or these ideas, or maybe applied them to my life when I was in my 20s, I wrote it for young people, but I thought, if I was in my 20s and understood some of these things, my life would be a whole lot different. So not that I want my life to be different. Everything that's happened to me has happened to me for a reason, and that's why I'm here. Life Master Radio. Okay, I think I've done enough housekeeping. Let's introduce our guest. You ready, Sherry?
Yep, I'm ready.
Look at Amanda's smile. She's all ready to go. Our guest today is Amanda Hainline, and Amanda has been a revered energy healer for the past 15 years, working with clients all over the globe. She is an intuitive healer, clairvoyant, audiovoyant, clairsentient. I might have to ask her what that means. I've never heard that one before. Medium, channel, and author. She loves bringing the world of energy healing to others through teaching, hands-on healing, and distance work. A spontaneous Kundalini awakening blew open all of her chakras all at the same time and rattled her cage. I know this from reading her book and some other interviews, thrusting her into a psychic realm instantly. To her utter shock, 3 angels ultimately arrived in her living room, proclaiming they would teach her how to heal people. That's pretty cool. After initially challenging them, she finally gave in and allowed them to guide her to start healing herself and others. Today, Amanda is an emotional freedom mentor, intuitive healer, and author of the book. Cue for Amanda to hold the book up. Feel Better in 5 Minutes, an empowering guide to gain control over your emotions and feel better in 5 minutes. She shares 79 emotional freedom methods to help others gain freedom from the anxiety, depression, and stress that are rampant today to help themselves and others. You can learn more. Her website is amandahainline.com. And like I said, that link is on today's show page at www.lifemasteryradio.com or .net. Hi, Amanda. How are you today, my friend?
I'm good. How are you guys?
So let's just beat back the truck up. What is a claircentium?
So that's basically clear feeling. When you get feelings in from kind of like in a psychic way, a lot of times those will accompany, clairvoyance, things I'm seeing or things I'm hearing, but sometimes it's just a feeling that I get for certain things. And it's very nuanced, just depending on, what I'm doing or reading about or the information I'm getting. So yeah, it's just kind of a gut.
I think I read you had experienced those kinds of things all of your life, but never knew what to do or how to deal with it. And you just kind of, did I hear you describe, you kind of blocked it?
I did. Yeah. I had, so when I was younger, the biggest thing that I had that would happen is I would have dreams and then things would happen, but they were never anything good. Like, oh, someone's going to surprise me with a cake. It was like a plane crash or a car crash or an earthquake or a volcano or something. And then it would happen. And when I was 12, 13 years old. The Loma Prieta earthquake happened in San Francisco in 1989. And 2 weeks before it happened, I had a dream about it. And I'd never even been out of the state of Texas at that point in my life. So I had, no context for anything I was seeing, but I was seeing roads collapsed and, when the Marina District was crumbled, like I was shown all these pictures. And then a couple of weeks later, I was home by myself when it happened and I freaked out just completely. Oh, it's all my fault. My mom came home. She's like, you were white as a sheet. You were crying and just so upset. And
so you had the impression you could stop it or you could have done something.
I could have done something. Like, why am I being shown this if I'm not supposed to do something with it? Because I was raised Southern Baptist. So it's like, this was not something that was okay to be experiencing as well. So, if I mentioned it at church, they'd be like, oh, well, that means, oh, are you saying you're a false prophet? Then you're going to hell. And I'm like,
you're a
12.
witch.
Yeah, something's wrong. Yeah. And so it was hard because I felt like there was something wrong with me for having these experiences. And I prayed and I was like, I probably was screaming and I said, please stop this. I don't want this anymore. Turn it off. Get it away from me. I don't want to deal with this. And I had a couple of other ones, but they weren't of any great consequence. A couple of other dreams where things happened, but it was nothing huge. But I've always been able to read people pretty well. And I didn't understand what that was. But after I was 30 and I had that spontaneous Kundalini awakening, all that stuff just went through the roof as far as, how sensitive I was to all of it. So,
Right.
yeah.
Something come to mind, Sherry?
Yeah, I'm curious. When you had this experience in the angels and this word that I don't know how to say happened, the chakras were open. Is there something that precipitated that? Was there a thing you were going through or something that had happened at your place in your life? What was happening in your life that you brought that on?
Well, what happened was I was in a really tough marriage. I was very depressed. I was raising 2 small children at home, and my life felt like very much like a Groundhog Day. It was very controlled. I was miserable, honestly. And so I thought, I don't want to go on medication, but I need some help. And a friend of mine recommended that I go to an energy healer. So I went to one session and she said, oh, she just flicks your wrists around and then taps on your head and heart. And, the energy will leave you. And I'm like, okay, I'll try anything. She said, oh, she can tell you all this stuff about you. I'm like, oh, I've never been to a reading before. I felt like I was doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. Like this was like a forbidden thing kind of, from my upbringing. And so I went to one session and I felt so much better afterwards. I thought, wow, this can be a solution for me. This can be a way for me to just manage my life. And so I made another appointment. And when I went back for the second appointment, she was muscle testing me again, flicking my wrist. And she said, all of your chakras want to open at once. And I'm like, well, what's a chakra? I had no idea what I was getting into. And she tapped on my head and my heart, and I felt like I was burning from the inside out, and then felt like I was being electrocuted. I started screaming. I felt like just this tremendous fear washed over me. And that lasted for about 30 seconds. And then I collapsed on the table and felt like I'd been hit over the head, and said, what happened? She said, all of your chakras open. I'm like, I don't know what that means still. She said, go outside, walk around, and go home, go to bed. And I did. And I thought I would feel better in the morning, and I didn't. I felt worse. My body was really heavy, and I just was really weepy. There's nothing to hold all of the stuff down that I had stuffed down for so long. All of the emotions,
Right.
all the trauma, all that energy was just all of a sudden broken loose. And it would come in these waves of just uncontrollable crying. I'd be screaming and just reliving. I was having these PTSD episodes. And that lasted really strongly for about 6 months. And during that time, I also started hearing voices and seeing.
And you had no idea what had happened. So
No.
You described it as a Kundalini experience, which can be incredibly powerful. I mean, and
Right.
if you don't have any guidance or a way of understanding it, it could totally rattle your cage.
Yes, it definitely can. And so what happened was I just kept going back to healers because I'm like, I don't know what else to do.
Right.
And so I did that just to try to find answers. No one told me, oh, you had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. Here's the checklist. This is what's going to happen. These are the possibilities. So just here you go. That wasn't what happened at all. It was probably about 8 years after I had my awakening that I actually had a word for it. And then I really understood the gravity of what I had been through, because it felt like a lot, right? When you're in the middle of, some kind of spiritual, energetic experience, it feels like a lot, but unless you have some outside perspective of it, it's really difficult to say, well, maybe I'm just crazy, kind of thing. But it was, it was definitely difficult. And about 6 months into it, I felt like I had some stabilization. I was going to healers and learning how to release emotions, how to just process energy and clear entities. And there were all these different pieces that I was learning. And I was doing laundry one day and I thought, I've got a handle on this. Just when you think, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I brought laundry out in the living room and I looked up, there's these 3 angels standing in my living room. I was like, what now? What do you want? Because I had become accustomed to them showing up at my house. And they said, well, we're going to teach you how to heal people. And I said, well, you're crazy because my life is a disaster and I can barely get my kids to school on time, and they're like, no, we're going to teach you everything you need to know. And you don't need to go get training anywhere else. And so I said, well, I don't believe you, and no one's going to believe me, you know, that angels train me how to do anything. So I'm going to go look for training. And so I did, and I couldn't find any. And it was either too far away, too expensive, wrong dates, whatever. And so I said, okay, fine, you guys teach me, you know, I'll just let you do this. And so people started showing up in my life that I could help, and they taught me everything I needed to know. So that's
an amazing story.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience, and they're still teaching me, you know, I still learn things when I work with people. So it's always a process and an experience.
Something else come to mind, Sherry?
I was saying, thank you for sharing that. That was interesting. Thank you.
So you were a professional as you're going through all of this and trying to figure all of this out. And so at what point did you say, well, they were teaching you, and were they giving you the confidence too to be a healer? You said that these people were coming to you just out of the blue.
Well, the first person that came to me was a friend of mine, actually, and she's talking about her mother and a relationship. And I started seeing all these pictures of her mom and her childhood and how her mother was treated. And I mean, I just get all this information that I funnel in.
That's really cool.
And so the trickiest thing when I first started doing it was that I would forget what I had been told by my guides and what I had been told by the person sitting in front of me. So sometimes I would really freak people out, because I'll be like, oh, well, yeah. And you said your mom, da, da, da. And she's like, I didn't say that. You know, you said, you know, your mom treated you this way when you were a child. She's like, how did you know that? I didn't tell you that. And I was like, oh, you know, because we had been talking for like 2 hours, you know, and she goes, are you getting that? Because she had known what had happened to me. And I think it was probably a year after I'd had my awakening at that point, and I had shared with her some of the things. And she's like, well, can you help me? And my guides were like, yes, you can. Say yes. And so it was that kind of like being pushed. It was this kind of relentless push that they had on me all the time. And I go, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know how to do that. They're like, you don't need to know how to do anything. We're teaching you. Don't worry about it. You know, so there definitely was imposter syndrome involved. There was worry that I was going to hurt someone. You know, I mean, all the things that you think about whenever you start something new,
or misguide somebody, right?
Right, exactly.
Or give them information that they probably don't want to, that you shouldn't probably give it to them.
Exactly. Well, if it was something that I questioned, like I was told one time that someone would get in a car accident, and I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to tell them that. They're like, no, you just need to know. And I was like, wow. Thanks, you know? And so I do have things like that happen where I'm told things just so that I have an understanding and I can guide the person to a perspective that is helpful for them, because I really like to tell people, you know, if someone says, oh, is this, you know, I get a lot of teens, you know, that, is this boy going to break up with me? You know, and I'm like, I said, well,
fortune teller.
Exactly. And I do get that a lot. And of course I'll hear it. Yes, of course he's a jerk, you know, kind of thing. And, but so what I tell them is, you know, what you really need to do is evaluate how you feel in the relationship. Do you feel like this relationship is a good thing for you? Do you feel yourself smiling about it all the time? Or do you find yourself crying a lot? You know, are you treated well? What do people say outside of the relationship, what it looks like, you know? And so I try to get them to have the perspective.
Explore it themselves.
Yes, without telling them the answer. Because really, if you just hand somebody an answer, I mean, my goal is, yeah, my goal is to always make somebody, or I say make somebody, help people develop their own intuition and get their own guidance, and just have that really strong constitution of self-reliance versus relying on me or any other healer for that matter whenever they're undergoing a stressful situation. It's really, you know, relying on your own intuition is always the first thing that I help people understand is best for them. And so that's kind of where the, you know, do it yourself book came from, as far as energy work, to help people, you know, to give them the tools.
Well, there's there's a huge focus on emotions.
Right.
And on how those can affect certain parts of our body, how stuffing emotions can affect us. When did you begin to realize that emotions were involved, and how did that transpire?
Well, the emotions really, when I was undergoing my awakening and I was having all of these different things happen, there was a huge emotional component to it, because everything that I'd stuffed down, I wasn't really allowed to express anger when I was a child, I feel like. And, there's just some other things that were trapped in there. And so as the stuff started to break loose, and I didn't have a way to process or understand what was going on, and I was going to healers, and they were saying, well, when it comes up, release it. Don't stuff it back down or try to push it away. Just breathe through it and thank it for being there and let it go. And so I started. So
let's hold up there. So that experience, describe for that experience. Is it pictures in your mind? Is it reliving that feeling? What is it that, I guess my point is what is it that people are to grab onto and just let it go and not stuff back in?
Right, exactly. So what I encourage people to do with a simple technique in the book is just welcome it up. If you're feeling an emotion, even if you're not clear exactly what the emotion is, because some emotions are really close in feeling to each other, or vibrationally, they're very close. You can just say, I choose to welcome up these emotions and whatever they're attached to. And you can envision it floating up out of your body and out of a window. I encourage people to always send it out of their space, because energy is one of those things that does stick around if you don't get rid of it. So breathing that out of your space, and just moving the energy through your body as that's happening. And sometimes you have to do it a few times. You have to do it for a little while, because if you've got something really stressful going on, but that's a really basic way of doing it. And emotions are.
Well, let's take me through this. I won't get too much into detail, but so sometimes for me, events from my past, either me doing something stupid or something will come up, and it's like I'm playing this movie in my head, and I'll think, well, that was really stupid, or that wasn't something that, but it's in the past. I can't change it. Is that what we're describing? Is some kind of event that the movie keeps playing over and over in our head until we say, there's nothing I could have done?
Right, exactly. Well, that is definitely one thing that happens to people a lot, not just circumstances that are today, but everything's linked together. So when you're having that happen and you're saying, gosh, I felt this way or that was stupid or whatever, it's, that's internal dialogue that's really beating you up on a regular basis when you're saying that to yourself, so there's emotions around that. Maybe there's shame, there's fear, there's anger, there's guilt, whatever it is, the emotions that are surrounding that. What I encourage people to do is, for you, I would say, I choose to release all of the emotions that are involved with this particular event and whatever they're attached to, and then sort through it in your head again, throw it in another loop. Does it feel better? What parts of it still upset you? Is the fear still there, or is the guilt still there? Is anger still there? What's still there? And then you can call those emotions out separately and release those. Say, I choose to release this and whatever it's attached to. And when you say and whatever it's attached to, the cool thing about it is that it digs deeper. So like you're saying, whatever. Yeah. So you've got this thing that you went through that you're like, oh, it's so stupid, and you've worked on that, and you're like, okay, well, now I'm remembering this other situation that I didn't think was even related, but for some reason, I'm thinking about that now. Then you can go, you get on the hamster wheel of that. And so you say, okay, well, I choose to release the emotions with this and whatever it's attached to. And I go through that in the book as far as vibrationally and subconsciously, how all the emotions are connected. And really everything starts with our energy system. I mean, every single disruption, every single issue that we've ever had, every physical ailment, but people don't recognize, they don't walk around and go, oh my gosh, my solar plexus is so congested today. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. And people don't do that, right? What people say is they don't know. Yeah. They're, once they don't really recognize it until it gets to an emotional state, right? Because that's
where it bubbles up, right? Where it's actually physically affecting their well-being.
Right, exactly. So you get knots in your stomach, solar plexus chakra, or butterflies in your stomach, anxiety.
Or you get sick.
Yeah, or you get sick, you could get stomach ache. I mean, nausea.
Well, or contract something. So in the pre-show today, Sherry and I were talking, and there are innumerable people around us, right, that have come down with COVID or gotten sick. But yet neither of us have.
Right.
And I mean, my assistants had it, my girlfriends had it, my kids, I mean, it's just been everywhere. And yet here I am still walking and squawking. So to me, that has to be some kind of energy field or some higher vibration that isn't allowing that virus to attach to my body.
That's exactly right. Yes. And that's how that works, because everything works on a vibration. So I do encourage people to keep their energy system clean as a part of health, because it gets neglected and most people don't even know that they need to do it. So that's
where you were going with that, right? Is those emotions, that pent up energy and not releasing them can actually make us vibrate at a lower level.
Exactly. Yes.
I went through kind of a parallel thing there. I think with that, one of the things that I've learned is in the last few years, my own renaissance of sorts, is that chronic pain, people with chronic pain, most of them, it is just because our bodies heal themselves, right? And if something doesn't heal itself, there's something else going on.
Right.
And you don't always need to know the sources. Well, I don't know. Would you agree with that? You just need to, like I tell my clients, a thought, you're not sure what to do, they take it out, look at it, don't judge it. And then just go. You don't need to, I have learned, at least I think, maybe, I don't know if you'd agree, but I don't need to attach it. Say, no, that was because when I was 5, my father did blah, blah, blah. It's just a thought that I've had. Once I've taken it out and aired it out, it's basically, it may come back again, but it's much less intense and eventually goes. Would you think, does that seem accurate to you?
Right. I think that's definitely a way to handle it as well, because it's, for some people, what I've found is some clients do really well with what you're describing. It's like, I don't need to know where it comes from. I just need to have this, okay, I'm feeling that, I'm releasing it, it's done. It's like, and if you're having chronic pain, like you said, it absolutely comes from, it really stems from, energetic and then emotional. We have traumas and all these different pieces playing into it. And so that's definitely a consideration. And for some people, they want to dig deep and have an understanding of how everything's put together. I have some clients that want to do that. And it's not so that they're spinning in it and going, oh, this is related to that. It's like, okay, what emotional trail, breadcrumbs am I following in energetic, so that I can keep pulling it out. And that way you're addressing stuff that's more than just on the surface. So but
so it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress process, right? I mean, it's
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's just different ways of doing it. And the one I describe in my book is some of that, what you're talking about, and doing it in the moment, and really sitting with it and then releasing it and letting it go. And then the other part is, if you want to dig deeper and figure things out, then you can do that. And so, because I know people learn different ways, and I want to make sure that regardless of how you pick up the book, it's like, you can get something out of whatever page you flip to. So that's why there's so many different techniques in the book.
Well, that brings me to another thing that you were talking about today, and now it just escaped my mind. So let's talk about the book just a little bit. This book can be used 2 different ways. It can be used like a reference book. Hey, I don't feel well, or I've got some anxiety, and then you have instructions. So describe for us what we will find in the book and those 2 ways that we could use it.
Okay. So the first way to use it is just kind of like the in the moment way. Let's say you received a phone call when you got home and you're about to go into the house and your kids are in there and they're excited to see you. And you get this phone call that your boss is screaming at you and you are livid. You are mad. You're like, I cannot believe this jerk, and you don't want to walk into the house hacked off, right? You want to walk into the house and welcome your kids and, leave everything outside, but you just can't let this go. And so sitting in your car, what you can start doing is you can say, I choose to release this emotion, whatever it's attached to. I choose to release this emotion to whatever they said and whatever it's attached to. And you just start breathing that out. And another thing you can do is specifically with anger is you can breathe in the color blue, like a light blue with that as well. And that can actually help calm down that energy and squelch some of that anger energy that you can have inside. So that's kind of the quick way to do it. And then
that reminded me about what I was going to ask you about. I was taught, because I heard you talk a lot about paying attention, right? Or being awake and aware. And that's what I gather is that's what your book begins to teach people how to do. I mean, it was life-changing for me when I figured out that I could choose my thoughts. It was huge. But I was taught, pay attention to what I'm paying attention to. And I think that's a lot of what you highlight too, right?
Yeah, it's, when you're paying attention to something, it's, it's important to have an awareness of things oftentimes, like, if you have an emotion coming up a lot, or did you have an example?
No, it's just, I was taught third-party perspective, right? So like
Yeah, absolutely.
where you were going, I have this emotion coming up where my boss just called me and now I'm pissed. I'd be exit stage left, but whatever. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need that anymore.
Me too. Yeah.
But being aware of, hey, I just reacted to this.
Right. Exactly.
This isn't the story. This isn't who I am. That
Right.
guy's deal is his deal, and I don't need to buy into it.
Well,
That's
Todd,
right.
do you find like that is both of you, Amanda, is that ongoing process? Like you realize, I think these thoughts, and then you come to a new level of it and you're thinking, oh, now I see these other things. And I find that's like the whole proverbial climb one mountain and you find you've got other ones to climb. But it's a lifelong process of being aware. Just what I think I've got it figured out. I find a whole new level of things going on that I'm thinking about or it's going through my brain that I'd never acknowledged before. And of course, starting, I guess, is the starting point. This being where that's possible. Do you think that's true, Amanda?
I do. I think that's very, very true because life is a journey. And as we have our experiences and as we have our awarenesses and, we have more and more of an awakening to our own truth and who we are as a person and the dynamics of everyone around us as well. It's a process, different stages of life, you're going to have different perspectives to begin with. And then whenever you have these awarenesses, oh, I've got this down, something else happens. It seems to always be the case, but it's, if we can just view it as a journey, it really is a big help because, feeling like we've arrived at a destination sometimes leaves us kind of short-sighted as far as the growth that we can have, so
it's funny that comes up. My teacher, because I was curious about this, exactly what we're talking about. And she says, here, Todd, look at it this way. And Amanda, I don't know if you remember, but you remember the carousels? Because when we used to take pictures, we'd get these little slides and then you'd have these carousels that you'd load these slides all up and then you drop it in the projector and show it on a wall, right? Mm-hmm. She told me, she said, look, Todd, your life's like this carousel and you show the slide. And if you're done with that slide, you take it out and put it in the box. And eventually the carousel's empty. But guess what? There's a whole nother carousel of slides for you to view. So that kind of got me thinking on how that works. So it is a journey and it is a life mastery journey, as I like to say. And along the way, when the student's ready, the teacher will show up or the process will show up or something will show up to help us deal with that if we're alert and our chins up and our tails out from between our legs.
And if we have a desire to deal with it too,
yes,
we won't recognize unless we have a desire to make difference. Amanda, do you have a client range? Like, do you find young people do this kind of work, very young people, or are they usually kind of a point in life? Is there a renaissance maybe?
Curious.
Or reinventing? Look to this kind of work.
Yeah, it really is quite a spectrum because for one reason, I have stepdaughters that are, she just had a birthday, 23 and 26. And then, so their friends I worked with when they were younger. And then I've had some other younger clients come out of the woodwork, and they start in their teens. I mean, they're coming to me and going, I'm interested in manifesting. I'm interested in living my best life. I'm interested in clearing these emotions. I have trouble with my mom or my dad or friends at school, or I've had this experience and I'm really scared about this outcome. And what do I do? And, so they're really coming at a younger age, I think, than we probably saw 20 years ago.
Yeah,
And
more open to the concepts and yeah.
They definitely are. And then I see all ages, up to, I think, 70s, but typically they're around, I would say, in their 20s to 40s, something like that, 50s. Yeah. So it's definitely a range. And because people are in all different stages of life, I often see them when they're going through a divorce, or, their kids are moving out, or they're having trouble with their teens, or, the teens are coming to me and saying, my mom doesn't understand me, that kind of thing. So it's definitely all these different
No
things.
surprise there.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard for
In today's world too. I mean, we haven't even really talked about that, but we've just gone through a huge transformation. I mean, this is just changing everything, and people don't realize that. They just think how bad it is. And granted, there are some terrible things that have occurred, and some things that, are not so good, but it's to me, it's a transformation. It's like things are dynamically changing. And I think that a lot of things that will come out of it will be for the better.
I agree with that.
You guys, it feels like the fear, like people have taken on two camps, sort of. It feels like the fear has maybe done more damage. I don't know. What do you think about that? The fear of during COVID and
the fear mongering,
the fear mongering and the fear, and just the fear. It's hard to escape it for any of us to have some sense of life will never be the same, which it was never going to be anyway. But still, we don't think that way, right? How much do you think that this last 2 years of the fear has maybe cause people to seek answers more? Maybe, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. So what I've seen with people, and I channel all different kinds of things. And one of the things that I did when this whole, COVID thing happened is, after a few months, I'm like, okay, I wonder what COVID has to say about it, which seems a little strange, but I thought, there's a reason it's here. There's a reason it's hanging out. What's going on? And I knew astrology.
Oh, that is awesome.
Going on. And what I heard was, people have to stop. They have to be still. I'm here to make people be still and be patient and to reevaluate their life. And I like all these, it's like, that's why I'm here. It's to make people stop. There's too much doing going on and not enough being. So when people were made to stop, and, a lot of people are go, especially in big cities, you're rushing here, you're rushing there, people don't get home until, 10 o'clock at night, a lot of times in the cities. And so they're made to stay at home, and then they're sitting in their traumas. They're sitting in their anger, their frustration, their loneliness, their fear, in all this stuff. And they have no way of processing it, because the way they've been dealing with it is by pushing through. You're just going to do the next thing. You're just going to go. You're just going to go to the next thing, whatever. And so I think that was a really big part of it, is that really to reevaluate our lives and start dealing with the deep-seated stuff that we just haven't looked at. And I think a lot of people were dealing with that. And there is a lot of fear. I mean, a lot of people do have fear around just what's going to happen. What's the world going to look like? And I think it's kind of this whole experience has been very much a marker for the world will never be the same. But honestly, day after day, the world changes every day, and in 20 years, it doesn't look the same. So, but it's kind of, it has more of like a fatalistic finality kind of energy to that statement whenever we're looking at something that has really changed the world so much. And I think
it's
that's
interesting interesting that you pose that question, because another huge benefit, and you don't hear a whole lot of talk about this, but it has definitely brought the family unit back together, right?
Yeah.
I think
at the end of the day, though, you have to choose, right? It could bring your family back together if that's what you chose to do, or if you chose to watch TV and watch the news. I'm sorry, I've got a choke.
That's okay.
It's okay.
But for younger kids, for younger kids, I mean, parents had to get involved. It's something that they had to do and be involved in what they were learning.
Yeah, it was really tricky. I mean, I think in some cases it really did bring families back together. We unfortunately saw a rise in domestic violence rates as well.
That's true.
Really, really scary and sad. And because courts were shut down, people that were in the middle of abusive relationships and divorces and stuff couldn't get away. So there were definitely situations like that those weren't the norm, obviously, but I did see in a lot of cases where family units were coming back together. They were forced to look at each other and go, wow, okay, we
live together. We actually live together.
Yeah, who are you? Are you I don't know. What's your name again? Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people were just so coming and going all the time that they really didn't have time to connect. So there was a lot of that. And there was a lot of life reevaluation. Why am I living in this city? When I can live anywhere now because I can work from home,
the bigger one is, look, I can work from home. I don't need to drive 30 miles and worry about finding a parking place and then being, in this huge, tall building.
Right. Exactly.
Or quit altogether. I think some people quit. I'll stay home with the kids. We don't need to work anymore.
Some moms had to, I think. And that was, maybe not
Force the moms
beneficial,
or
but
parents. Yeah, because how are you going to get kids to do online school if a parent's not there? I don't know how parents, my grandchildren, mostly their parents are stay-at-home moms, but what would you do if you're working and you've got kids? I don't know how the families managed that, but they did.
Yeah, it's in a lot of cases, it didn't work well. There's some states now that are realizing that kids basically just didn't go to school for 18 months,
right.
So that's definitely occurring in some places where there's kids that are really behind. But all of it is, I mean, the way I look at all of it is what it is. It's not, I don't view it as a tragedy. I just view it as change. And so it's just making us reevaluate the education system. It's making us reevaluate, our life choices, our values, how we work, in the world, what we're showing up for. Do we like what we're showing up for?
Or what's important to us? What's our purpose?
Exactly. What's your purpose? People are really getting into this. It's like a mass existential crisis on all these different levels. So it's, and I went through it before. So people are like, this is awful. I'm like, well, I'm doing all right. I'm just, because during the whole thing, that's when I wrote my book, and that's what spurred it to be written. Actually, was people were really struggling with fear. They were struggling with anxiety, all these things. And I put a little thing up on my website, and then I thought, this really isn't enough. And I started writing, and I went, oh, this is a book. Okay.
Well, you had mentioned that the book channeled the book, right? So how did that process work? Did you just get messages and then wrote about it? Because the book is filled with your personal stories, with stories from clients. I have to give you an A for that, because stories are the way that we communicate with each other, and that's the way you get concepts into people's heads, is because they can identify with those stories.
Exactly. And so in 2016, I had started writing a book, and the way I had started it was by writing down client stories. And I actually didn't put all the client stories that I had in the book. I had like 35 or 40 client stories that I had written down, but I couldn't get past that step. I was like, okay, what do I do with all this? These are great, but there needs to be something actionable out of it. What do I do with it? How do I do this? And so I got really frustrated after a while, shelved it, and said, I'll just wait, and then my life took a crazy turn, and I ended up living in a foreign country. And so then I moved back, and that's when I pulled it out again and started writing the book when I was going through these things. So there are portions of the book that are channeled that, especially I think, I want to say chapter 2, where it really talks about how to follow the train of vibrational breadcrumbs, the really technical parts of the book I've channeled, or my guides have taught me over time. And a lot of the actual techniques in the book were channeled. Some of them I've been using for years, and other ones I wake up at 2 a.m. and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And I would just get up and into the voice recorder. And then the next morning I would write it all down, because if I tried to sit there and write it and got my brain in the way, then it just, it doesn't work. But some of the things in the book, I, when you're going back, when you're writing a book, you have to review it time and time again. And I would read something, I'm like, that's so cool. I don't remember writing that down.
Or now after it's done, you think, wow, I should have put that in the book. Oh, I should put that in the book. So.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why the QR codes are at the beginning of each chapter. So the QR codes, actually, if you click on that with your phone, what they do is they actually lead to videos on my website talking.
Oh, wow. What a cool idea.
Yeah. And so then I'm going to be able to add in information as I get it. I haven't started that process yet.
Okay, we're going for a rewrite.
Yeah, so I figured, that's an easy way to put, when I do courses that are related to the book and all that kind of stuff, I can put all that information in the QR code. So that's part of the reason that I did that.
Speaking of courses, you have some events coming up. You want to tell us about an event, or entice me to attend this event that you have coming?
All right. Well, I do have a course coming out on manifestation.
Cool.
That is going to be coming out in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to start promoting that. And then I also have a membership that's in line with the book that's called the Feel Better membership, where each technique in the book is, I put it into video form and I walk you through the technique. We're also going to have audios in there eventually. I haven't done those yet, where they're going to be like in meditation form, so you can just listen to it and go through the different techniques. And then there'll just be more information in there as we go along. But that's kind of the core
idea. That's so cool.
Yeah. And then the manifestation course, I just filmed those videos last week. I'm working on the worksheets this week. So that should be done in the next, like I said, 2 to 3 weeks. We'll have that up and running. And then I've got a Facebook group that's Daily Energy with Amanda Hainline. And I go live in there about every 2 weeks on Fridays.
Does that work for you? Is that a good venue?
The first couple went really well, and then less people showed up to some, and then we went into the holidays, and we haven't started that process back up. We're just kind of playing with it and exploring the avenue of it. And I am going to start doing more things on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, and we're going to start putting more videos on there. And then I plan on starting a podcast probably in the last quarter of the year. So,
don't say that too loud. The engineer station owner might hear you, and then he'll ask you to do shows. Just remember this. I'll plug it. Contact Radio is pretty cool, and Cam's pretty cool. So when you get ready to do that, you might explore that. There.
Awesome.
There, Cam, you won't have to do that.
We're trying to figure out all different kinds of ways to do things, but the
it
YouTube
is so
channel
huge,
definitely,
and it's so dynamic, and it's so changing. I can't keep up with it all, but
definitely.
Oh my goodness, we have about 8 minutes left, ladies. Sherry, is there anything else that's coming to your mind that you wanted to ask Amanda?
Not right now. I'll let you ask the last minute question. I might still have something.
Well, we still have 8 minutes. We can kick things around. Amanda, this has been such a joy, and there's so much more that we could talk about. I hope you'll come back.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. So is there anything we're missing? Anything last that you're feeling like should be expressed?
Well, one of the things that I like to share with people is the grounding technique, because I feel like grounding is something that it's so important, and so many people don't do it, or they're not aware that it's actually a thing. So we have foot chakras that come out the bottom of our feet, like roots into the ground. And that helps to ground us energetically. And you can be on the second floor of a building and still do this exercise. It does not matter. But it's really important to energetically ground yourself, because if you're not, it's kind of like
here, we'll preface it with this. You should have your feet on the floor.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
not sitting in a chair Indian style. Your feet should be on the floor.
They should be on the floor. If for some reason, like if you wake up in the middle of the night and your head is spinning, you can stand up if you want to, or you can just envision the roots coming out and just kind of sinking into the ground of the bottom.
That's cool too.
Yeah, so you can do it that way. Standing up is definitely an easier way to envision it at first when you're doing this. So what you do is just envision roots coming out of your feet and sinking into the ground, first of all, as deep as you can go, just taking some deep breaths and pushing them further down into the ground as you go. And then after you feel like those are down, a few feet, you can actually breathe up through those roots and breathe that energy up into your body so that you're bringing that grounded energy up and into your energy system, your physical body. It helps calm anxiety. It gives you clarity. It's just a really, really good, simple exercise that I tell people, especially if you're inherently ungrounded, which a lot of people are, like young moms running around like a chicken with your head cut off. You got your sunglasses on your head and you're looking for them, or you got your keys in your hand and you're like, where are my keys? That kind of stuff. If that happens to you a lot, you're probably inherently ungrounded, which is totally fine. You can learn to be inherently grounded, but it really does help you to kind of get a handle on that whole process. And then just take some deep breaths and breathe that in. It's really, 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 really helpful to breathe in that grounded energy. And that's something that people.
Another huge tool, and I know you teach it too. Maybe you could give us some pointers on meditation.
I was just thinking about meditation too, and a lot of things you're talking about there. I think
right
meditation is a good there.
Meditation is a big one. And one of the things that I feel like get missed in meditation that I see people do, especially people that meditate a lot and they're just kind of having this process of connecting through their head and they're not bringing everything down all the way through their body, is if you're going to draw, because you open up your crown chakra and you take some breaths and you bring in the light and you bring in source into your system. But it's also really important to bring energy up through your feet as well to ground yourself. Because if you meditate on a regular basis and you're just messing around up here in your head with all of the energy up here, you can get really disoriented and where it's hard to get things done and all that because you're not activating your lower chakras, which are the chakras that help you function on the planet. So it's really important to ground that energy as well. I encourage people to pull energy up through their feet or up through if you're sitting, pull them up through the base of your spine into your root chakra and up as well and connect it in your heart, and then pull it down through your head and connect it in your heart. And that way you're dealing with that astral bridge, which is the heart chakra, and everything is processing through there, but it's being pulled from two directions. So it takes a little bit of practice, but it's definitely, if you start feeling lightheaded when you're meditating, pull up the energy through the bottom, pull it up from the bottom, from the earth, because that will really help ground you. And it's a much more effective meditation that way as well.
Very cool. We just have, maybe about 3 minutes left. And I just want to quickly get your thoughts on gratitude. Amanda, what are your thoughts about gratitude?
Gratitude is
look, there's the gratitude alarm.
I know, right?
Is that me?
No, my husband was calling him.
Okay, because am I on somewhere?
Sorry about that. So gratitude is really big. And I do encourage people to do that on a regular basis because it really does shift your mind from the hardwired thinking everything's wrong, and the trauma and all that stuff. It shifts it into this different place. It's a very high vibrational place. So doing gratitude when you get up in the morning, doing gratitudes before you go to bed at night, it really puts you in a good state to sleep.
It's proven.
Good state.
It's proven. It's proven to get those brain chemicals flowing.
It does.
Oh my goodness, ladies, we are just about out of time. Thank you so much. Sherry, any quick takeaways? You're definitely going to read her book now, huh?
Yes. And so many things, maybe coming from a different angle, but so many of the things Amanda shared are things that I teach maybe from a different angle.
Sure.
The meditation thing, of course, is huge. I meditate with my feet on the ground. You'll be glad to know that. So many of the principles, it's so interesting to me that truths are truths, no matter where they come from. And it's interesting. So yes, I will read your book. So thank you, Amanda. And thank you, Todd. I'm gonna bail as soon as we're done. I have a client, but thank you for inviting me. I'm grateful you would think of me. I'm grateful you would think of me.
Thanks again, Amanda. Did you have a blast?
Yeah, it was
Kinda fun,
great.
huh?
I told you
Yeah,
Todd does a good interview.
just
Fun to talk to everybody. So
great
Yeah.
stuff.
awesome.
And I hope you'll come back. That's about all we have time for today. Amanda can be found at amandahainline.com. The link is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com. You can just go there and check it out or follow her. She's got some really cool events. You might even see me at one of those events coming up. Lastly, please tell a friend that just say something like, man, I watched this really cool show. You got to check it out. He's got some really cool ideas, great thoughts and ideas for people to use on their life mastery journey. And you should check it out too. So tell a friend about the podcast. Lastly, please make it a groovy day and also a great day, because both those things require choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye. Thank you. Bye, Amanda.
Bye.